thought about where you were going in life? Or have you always just done what life was expected? I'd like to share a little story about happened about 5 decades ago. A young girl that was born and orphaned. Unfortunately, she didn't have much of a choice in life. And her very first experience that she had with life was fear, because the very thing that she had known was taken away from her. From that point on, fear had become a big part of her life. I'm sorry, guys. It doesn't get any real than this. So her first experience with life was fear and being taken away from her mother. From that point on, all throughout her childhood and into adulthood, she had to find coping mechanisms to get through the fear that she constantly felt. As a young child, there was never an identity of where she belonged. And so that fear of always wondering where she would fit in, what would become of her, would she be left alone again? It became the very thing that drove her. And in driving her, she created this habit. And the habit was that she always had to push through things in life, especially if she was going to become anything or do anything. It was, just had to kind of push through it. And while you're pushing through that habit, you don't realize all of the things that are important to you that you're leaving behind, but you're doing what you have to take care of yourself. She was blessed to be adopted at infancy and into an amazing family. In fact, one of the greatest gifts that family probably gave her was that unconditional love. But it would never seem to be enough. There was always an empty hole in her heart, and always fear driving her. So over time, she did everything that was expected of her, which, most people do. You think about, you go through school. Well, going through school. If you really want to know, she used to hide up on the stairwell so she didn't have to go to school, so she didn't have to deal with people. It was easier to avoid situations and have to deal with them. And so her father would actually drag her to school when she was a child. Again, pushing through all of these different things and the habits that she created, that habit was just pushed through whatever the fear may be. Doing what was expected, you worked for the family business, or she worked for the family business, and, she was expected to, marry a good man and buy a house and finish school, maybe not all in that order, but have some children and, live the American dream, right? That's what it's all about. Well, while she was busy doing all of that, she was also busy holding a lot of balls in the air. She became a successful businesswoman in the process of not only being a successful entrepreneur, but sat on a lot of different community engagements, business development teams, economic development, boards, and so forth that kept her busy. And then she had 4 children. Her and her husband had 4 children together. And those 4 kids kept her busy. They were all, inclined with sports and so forth. And so if you weren't running from a game, you were running through a traveling soccer team, or you were sitting on a PTA meeting, that at some point in her life, she realized that she'd get up in the morning and do all the mom things, and then she was blowing kisses as she was walking out the door and just running through life. And that, when you put your head down on the pillow at night, she used to say, if she got 4 hours of sleep a night, that was a lot. And even if she tried to get 4 hours of sleep a lot at night, what would happen was the mind would get even faster. And so even though she may have had her head on the pillow, sleeping was totally overrated. She would have to get up in the evening and write things down, because if she didn't, then she didn't get any sleep at night. And so if you want to talk about insomnia, it was pretty hefty. And there were all of these warning signs. People would always say to her, hey, don't you think it's about time you slowed down? Don't you think it's about time you had a vacation? Don't you think you just, take some time for yourself and relax? But as usual, the pattern and habit of dealing with the fear and pushing through it was that, if she stopped now, then she'd have to deal with whatever was going on inside of herself. And that would have been worse. So kept herself pretty busy. That one day, that busy, crazy, expected life that she had been living and doing for a lot of people, mind you. She cared for a lot of people, had a lot of people that, counted on her to take care of things, landed her in a very cold and bright room. And before long, she realized that she was having a heart catheterization. And so everything had come to a screeching halt. Now, thank the good Lord that it wasn't anything as serious as some of the other people that I know that have had some traumatic events in their life. But this sassy young girl from New Jersey, mind you, that had learned to push through everything and had learned to, know the right people, knew how to get things done, who to call, stuff like that. Sitting there on the table waiting for the doctor to come in the room to let them know, what the problem was. If that wasn't enough stress, I don't know what was. But, you hear the footsteps start to come into the room. And the doctor always says, right, I'm sure you can all relate, I have good news and I have bad news. Well, the good news was that there was nothing wrong with your heart. And the bad news, well, you just got to hang on for a few minutes. You see, like many people in life that I hear so often, a dear friend of mine, Terry, she had had a problem with her shoulder for a great length of time. She had gone through all the different tests, blood work, x-rays, CAT scan, and all too often you hear people say that can't find anything wrong with you. And so, just like this infant, if I fail to mention, her name was Baby Williams, just like this infant, into adulthood, she was told that there was nothing wrong with her heart. Well, you can't tell her that something didn't happen. She knows for sure that something happened. She felt like she had 1,000-pound bricks on her chest. She felt like she couldn't breathe. She felt like, everything was stopping. You can't catch your breath. You can't tell me that, she wasn't experiencing something like that. Well, if you haven't figured it out already, that she or Baby Williams that had that experience was me. And all too often, I hear on a daily basis that people just don't understand why they're having so many health issues. And like, part of the announcement, it was said that 5 out of 6 major diseases today, they say scientifically 90% of it is caused by stress. Well, there's lots of different methods that are out there that people use in order to try to relieve the stress or, get rid of the stress. And I've done all of those methods. I've done meditation. I do yoga. I've, taken medicine. Thank the good Lord, and I'm not on any medicine today. And I've seen a therapist as a young child. And, those are all really great things. And whatever works for you, works for you. But, from this process that happened, there was a miracle that changed things for me. And I relocated to the northeast corner of Pennsylvania, where most of my life I'd always dreamed of having a horse. And I did in my adulthood, but it was really hard to have a horse in the city. So one of the first things the family did is that we had gotten 2 horses, and I started to learn about natural horsemanship. Well, in that process, nobody ever told me that natural horsemanship was going to cure my problem. And the first biggest problem that I had was, how do I turn off my mind? How do I get my mind to stop? I don't know about you, but if you're struggling with depression and addictions, and I mean addictions from cell phones to sugar to drugs and alcohol and sex, I mean, whatever it may be, you tell an addict to stop something, it's nearly impossible. So the two most important things that our horses have taught me was how to redirect my energy in order to solve what was going on. If you play with a 1,200-pound horse and you've got a whole lot of energy inside of you and that horse is running around and all you see is his belly button, well, he's not doing it because he wants to do it. He's doing it because it's your energy. And so I had to learn how to balance that energy. And as long as I directed his, then together we could work easily and he would be in harmony with me. And it was really cool. But the second thing that I learned was that how to quiet my mind. And when you're playing with a 1,200-pound animal that's bigger than you, that could hurt you or love all over you, there isn't anything else that you can think about. And so after about, I don't want to say 4 or 5 months of, learning natural horsemanship, the one thing that I learned was that, holy crap, I wasn't thinking anymore, as if it was a bigger problem than I had before, right? And so then it was just this huge epiphany of, wow, this could really help other people. And yeah, there's psychotherapy and therapeutic riding and all that stuff. And not everybody wants therapy and not everybody needs, has disabilities that needs the alternative riding. And it was like, well, how is it that I can take this to other people? Or how is it that I can share with other people? Because next thing you know, I wasn't taking any medicine. So over time, I started to just, keep practicing this. And I started to bring people into the arena and try out different things and got certified into different areas of my life through life coaching and experiential education and things like that. And well, the next thing you know it, people are coming to you and there's miracles that are happening. I've got a dear lady that had come to me. Her name was Patty. And she's probably one of the oldest clients that we've worked with at this point. She had a lot of stuff going on in her life, and she'd refer to herself as the people pleasers, that she was always pleasing other people. And the stress was just really out of control, and she didn't know what to do. And she felt like she was about ready to give up. And so one of these activities that we put together that I had learned was called Balls in the Air. Maybe some of you, can relate to this. But, when you're trying to have so many balls in the air, it's kind of hard to manage them. And we know what we know, but we really don't know until we have some type of experiential experience. And so the metaphor that we created in the arena for her was that she had to label the balls, all the different things that she had to take care of. And then we put an obstacle course together for her, and she had to take the horse with the balls through the obstacle course. Now, if the balls started to fall off, she wasn't allowed to pick them up. Well, we have a pretty big basket of balls. In fact, we even have a 4-foot soccer ball. And you'll be amazed at how people label what balls. But this lady labeled a whole bunch of balls. And then, of course, she tried to pick them all up and carry them with her. So the first epiphany was, well, no wonder why I can't do this. As often, right, or as everyone usually does, we push through it. And so she goes out and she does the activity and she takes the horse through the obstacle course. And next thing you know, she's left with one ball. And that one ball was the most important thing to her. And on it, it said, care for her husband. She was entering her elderly years of life and her husband was failing. And she had all of these things that she had to take care of when she realized that the most important thing that she really needed to take care of was her husband. We all lose track of where we're going because we don't think about the direction that we're headed. And rather, we just get busy being busy. We get busy being professionally, just taking up tasks. We get busy just taking care of kids and getting through the daily life or competing with the Joneses or, just running the race of life. And it's really hard. There had to be a better way. I just couldn't do what I was doing before. So kept doing, what we call today, the methodology is known as equine assisted learning, or if you didn't know what equine meant, it's a Latin word for horse. And through that methodology, we create objective sessions that are metaphors for people to learn from and just heighten your awareness. The more you can be aware of what it is that you're doing and how you're acting and what your behaviors are and your attitudes are, the more consciously you can change how things are happening. Yeah, we know change is uncomfortable, but one of the techniques that we teach at the facility is about focusing forward. And so instead of worrying about change and thinking about the past or how painful it could be, if we don't have someplace that we're going to, then that makes that change even more difficult. And so what we help people do is to think about where they do want to go and what would life look like if they were able to change it. And so there's this inspiration that starts to come about that wasn't there before. I'll give you another example. On a professional level, we have people come in all the time, but this one particular activity, great guy, his name is Carl. He's an insurance broker, great book of business, started a couple of years ago, phenomenal team, good relationship person. He felt like he stalled out, and as soon as we stall out and we start to use up the resources of what we know how to do, that's a clear indication that we need some new knowledge in order to help us get us to the next level. And so Carl had come in and done some workshops with us, and this one particular activity we put together for him, it's called Driving for Success. And it's really cool, right? Sounds really simple. And so we create the obstacle course in the arena, and all he has to do is lead the horse from behind and take him through the obstacle course. Well, as always, right, I get the look of, you've got to be kidding me. Nope, that's all you got to do. And so they head off into the arena and they push through whatever's going on and they go to do the obstacle course. Well, there is no real right or wrong way to live a life, and there's no right or wrong way to do the activities that we put together for you. They're all meant there so that you can learn from them. So Carl went out to do the activity, and in the process of doing the activity, something happened. He found himself in the center of the arena, basically doing circles with the horse. And so the horse kind of kept leading him around and around in a circle. Well, when we came back in and we sat down and, we talked about what had happened, he's like, I don't know. I thought it would be so simple. I could just lead the horse through the course. He said, but I kept doing the circles. Well, my job is not to tell you what to do. I don't know if any of you have kids, but if you tell your kid what to do, they sure as hell don't do it. And so what I've learned in the work that I do is not about telling people what to do, but how do I help them to be the highest potential of themselves. And so I ask really good questions. And by asking really good questions, I pay attention to the different things that happen in the arena. If there's uniqueness or patterns or, something specific that shows up, it's not about what I see, but how can I help them to see what that means for them? And so because Carl had used the word circle, and, I'm sure many of you know what circling in life and doing the same thing over and over again. I had that for a while too. He realized that he had lost sight of where they were going. And so what the circle had meant for him was that they had gotten busy working harder and longer doing the same thing when they had exhausted the resources that they had. And they had lost sight of where they were going to collectively go as a team. And so when he went back to the office and had to sit down and tell him about this crazy opportunity that he had done in an arena with horses, the team got on board right away. They thought, yeah, let's do it. If this is the thing that's got us, unstuck, how do we pull our vision back together and get back on track again? Well, the beautiful thing is that next quarter, they doubled their book of business. So every day we have people that come into the arena because they're struggling with different situations, whether they're stuck, whether they, lack communication, whether they know they've got some bully issues, whether they're, manipulation, intimidation. Patterns and habits start at a really young age, and my stress started when I was first born. That very first step into life, that very first impression that I had was fear. And that fear I carried with me for a really long time. Now, I don't know about you, but stress you can never take away. It's just something that we all have to cope with. But if we can find better ways to cope with it, I believe that you have to get to the root of the problem. And through the different activities that we do at the arena, it's just that thing. It helps get to the root of the problem. So you can Band-Aid it with medicine. You can Band-Aid it with all these other things. But until you really start to work on yourself, and just, go inward as to why things are happening the way they're happening. I don't know about you, but every thought becomes an action. Every action becomes a reaction. So how you're reacting to life or acting in life, you're getting the reactions that you're creating. And everyone wants to change everybody else, but reality is it's much easier to change yourself than work on other people. Maybe you all like to share an activity with me. We just to help you get a clearer picture of, how your thoughts and actions and behaviors and attitude in your own life, if you can take this back to maybe something that's going on for you and it can help you, that's what I'd love today. Think of this big white board behind me. If you were in the arena with us, we put white PVC on the floor, on the sand. And that box, this big box, represents a company. It could represent family, business, whatever it may be. But for now, we're just going to say it represents a company. And we bring in one of our team members, right, our horses. In fact, one that's resonating for me right now, bubbling over, is Oreo. Oreo's not one of our 1,200-pound horses, but one of our 400-pound horses. And yes, she's black on both ends and white in the middle. She's really cute. But so we bring her into the arena and we say to you, okay, well, here's the activity. The box represents the company and the horse represents your future client or your future relationship that you want to have, whatever it may be. And all you have to do is get the horse into the box, right? Sounds pretty simple. Well, this particular gentleman that I can refer to, his name is Scott. He was a business banker. And he came in and, he was just frustrated with selling, and sales is really hard and gets really nervous about it. And, he's trying to make the best out of doing his sales business, being in banking. And he really loves banking, but it's just not working for him. There's all kinds of things that are happening, and this frustration that's building up inside of him, not his work, but it's affecting his relationship at home, and it's affecting his relationship with colleagues and so forth. So we said, okay, no problem. Come on in. Let's do the activity. So he did the activity and he got the horse in the box, and it was like, yes, I got the client. This is awesome. Well, when we took it back into the room and we debriefed it, it was quite interesting about, what were some of the, things that you did in order to get the client in? And, he's like, well, I had to push a little, and, I had to kind of hang out, and I got a little bit of grass, and I put a little bit of grass in the box. And, I did manage to pull on him a little bit, but yeah, I got him in. It was really good. It was exciting. And I said, that's awesome. And so my last question for this particular gentleman on that day was, what do you think the client experienced? And so when the point being here is that's when the big epiphany happens, right? It's our choices that we make on how we behave, on what we think, and what we do in life that's going to have a reaction to other people. And this particular stress that he was creating was that he was making the sale about himself. It was just $1. And in creating that $1 sale, he didn't feel good about making the sales. But through that epiphany of the client's experience was really bad. I manipulated, I intimidated, all those traditional means of selling. It sucked. So we said, okay, great. So the focus forward method, right? We've done the activity. We paralleled to where it happens at work. How do we pull forward? And he said, well, I think the most important thing is creating a lasting relationship with people, because the more I can create lasting relationships with people, the more the more my life will have meaning, and the more people will want to do business with me. I said, that's great. So what are you going to do? And he's like, well, from now on, I'm going to find out what the needs are for the clients first and see if I have a product that matches those needs. And so he left feeling really good about himself, and there was a complete shift in his work as well. Point being here is that, I come up on stage all the time and I talk to people all around the world. Doesn't mean that I don't get scared. Geez, I even got emotional this time before I started out. I've never really had to share my story. I'm sure there's lots more that I could share. But, learning how to, just deal with that stress and why it's happening is really key. We have more people today that are diagnosed with depression, anxiety, ADHD, and you hear about more suicides and deaths than ever before. Obviously, something's not working, especially when scientifically they've proven that 5 out of 6 diseases, 90% of it is caused from stress. So what's the one thing that we're not treating is our own thinking. And so where do we go, or what is it that we can do that could help? And have you ever thought about, hey, I need to change my thinking? Well, we take it back into the arena with my herd, and I'd love and invite all of you back there to meet all of them. We've got Zeus and Jolly. Oh, yeah, he's Jolly, all right. Oreo and Script, Cutter. And each one of them has different personalities, just like you do. So we help humans to get to the root problem as whatever's causing their stress, whatever their behavior, action, and attitudes are, so that they can live a better quality life. And to be honest with you, it's quite remarkable. The epiphanies that happen in the arena, you can't make up. I just highly encourage you to work on yourselves. Now, this leads me to a couple of things that people always ask me. Well, Gina, if I can't get to the arena, what is it that I can start working on? Well, we have 4 things that we always say. Is first off, life is busy. Life can get really crazy if you let it. But the first thing that you want to do is heighten your awareness of your own conscious, of what it is that you are thinking and what's important to you. The second thing is that, what is your behavior or attitude behind it, right? And is it positive or negative? Is it uplifting or is it draining? If it's draining, then obviously it's not the world around you that has to change. It's your behavior or attitude that has to change. And so what is it that you have to think differently? What takes us to the next thing, which is about focusing on solution. Whatever the challenge is that you may be having in life, we all know what life experience has gotten us to where we are today. We all know the garbage that we brought with us. We know that we have resources, and that's the first thing that we'll do mentally, is that when there's a challenge, is we look back at, what is it that we know how to do, and that's what we try. And so I want to encourage you to stimulate the right side of the brain, which is what we do when we're in the arena. And what is it that you could do differently, right? What's the solution behind whatever it is that you're having a challenge with? What would you like the outcome to be with that particular challenge? And from that point, then what's one step you could take, right? It's only one step. I've struggled with perfectionism. I don't want any of that again. I just know that if I take one step in the direction of whatever the solution is that I want to happen, whether good or bad, or I should say doing the right thing, whether I like it or not is probably a better verse of that, then I'll be fulfilled and happy at the end. And I can put my head on the pillow at night. It's not always easy to do the right thing. And it's not always easy to do the hard thing. But I can tell you, doing what's right and doing what's hard, the rewards, yeah, I don't want to cry again, but I'll bring you to your knees. So I leave you with this. I encourage you to heighten your own awareness. I encourage you to look at your own behaviors, your own attitudes, and your own lives and what's not working. And think about where it is that you want to go. Up to this point is fine, but where is it that you want to be in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, maybe even 25 years from now? And what is it that you have to do to get there? Because otherwise, if you just keep living day to day or you live in the rat race of life, at the end, most people will be really disappointed and feel lost and hopeless. And there's so much more to life than what you can imagine. So I encourage you to step out of your box and do something new. And Fast and Furious is great. It's fun while it lasts. But the passion and love, that's what's going to fulfill you and make you happy. And the more you can regulate your stress and work on the stress, the better your health is. I'm an example of that. Knock on wood, or it should be wood, no. No medicine. I just keep working with my horses and working with people and giving back to others. Thank you all for coming.